The best way to understand my passion and why I'm starting a ranch is to start from the beginning, because that's the only way you'll know where I'm coming from. When I was 8 years old, I was abandoned by my mother at a neighbor's house in Texas. And I ended up going to my step grandmother's, then my granny and grandpa from my mom's side, and then I went to my aunt and uncles until I was 17, junior in high school. I knew I wasn't wanted because they told me, not my granny and grandpa, but they couldn't take care of me. But I've been in churches when I was younger, not with family, but people always wanted to invite the orphan child to church, and nobody ever asked me about my home life. Nobody was ever there for me. Well, when I moved out on my own, I became homeless, so I got to see a lot more hurting people. And then I decided to go to college. I became a police officer. And I saw a lot more hurting people. But what I didn't see was people that actually did something about it. You would see a lot of Christians, and they would go to church and they'd pay their 10% tithes, but that's all. It's like they'd forget about the hurting ones. That they would judge, oh, you can't cuss, you can't do this, you're not supposed to do that. Oh, don't go around them because you'll become one. Romans 8:12 says you're supposed to be different and away from everybody. You're supposed to separate yourself from everybody. But how do you help those that are needing help if you refuse to be around them? If you refuse to talk like them? A few years ago, about 2-3 years ago now, I had spinal surgery. I was losing the ability to walk, and I went 10 months without working, and I was in a lot of pain financially. And I was the only income in my family, my wife and my daughter, my 6-year-old. And it was hard to get any help. But we found that we were going to be evicted from our house. And then my wife found this land for sale. And we'd been talking for years about owning land and starting a homestead. Well, our plan, and that's probably what's important to a lot of people, what we're actually going to do and what we've started doing, is to raise goats, chickens, rabbits, and vegetables, and all of it being clean, not full of vaccines or antibiotics or anything like that that's hurting people. Non-GMO. Our animals are actually happy. They're basically free. They're just fenced in. And if you're a hunter, you understand that you don't want your animals to be scared when you kill them. I know that seems a little rough, but it's true, because it produces a toxin, or not a toxin, but it tastes gamey, and that's because it's not happy. It's not natural. You got to respect the animals. Well, our goal, and I will achieve this goal regardless if anybody ever helped me. It may take me 50 years, but I'm going to do it. I want to give 90% away and live off 10%. I don't want to be a pauper, but I know it's very possible, because 10% to me isn't, I'm not talking financially. I mean, I want to be self-sustaining, so we don't really need a lot of money. Well, right now we do. What I mean is, once everything is going, electricity, water, everything else is just here and very possible. But I want to be able to give people food that don't ever go to church. I'm not saying I won't help people that are going to church, but there's a lot of people that don't feel like they can go to church. They don't want to go to church and beg and ask for money or ask for help. But they need help. They need food. Because if you've ever lived off food stamps or anything like that, you don't really have the best quality of food. But I also want to minister to people. And I found a long time ago, as a police officer, well, heck, as a kid, that I have a gift of being able to talk to people where they are, the way they hear. Not the way I speak, but the way they hear me. And that's important. You know, when I say that my biggest idol is Jesus, I'm not talking about worshiping a deity. I know that sounds sacrilegious saying that, but it was who he was. He spoke to people where they were. When he talked to the woman at the well, he told her of her sins, but he didn't tell it in a condemning way. He was just explaining, listen, I know who you are. I don't care. I love you anyway. People need that. People need to hear that they're loved anyway. And the best way to do that is giving them what they need. That's what Jesus did. He'd heal people, and he didn't ask for anything, not even preaching at them. Not even, will you go to church? He just healed them. That's important. Because if you heal the body, the soul will follow. People need to know that you're not wanting anything from them by giving them. You're just loving them. We've already got the land. We've got 8.23 acres, which is plenty of land. I've watched a lot of homesteaders that grew a lot on 2 or 3 acres. We've got a flowing creek. We've got plenty of pasture land. I mean, most of this land is pasture. But of course, we lack a house. I mean, we came here because without anything, because we were getting evicted because I went 10 months without working, and when you can't pay for anything, you can't blame them for having to sell their house. There was a buddy that owned my house that I was living in, and he was gracious enough to let me stay there without paying him. But then he ended up in problems, and I couldn't help him. A lot of people like to judge anytime somebody is in need. And I found that the hard way. People judge me really quickly. Why don't you work harder? I'm actually filing for disability because, well, my friends, I have a friend that works for the Social Security office, told me I should have filed years ago. I've had 5 back surgeries, a left arm reconstruction surgery. I have a lot of issues, but I still worked. I still want to work. I don't want to take. That's why I didn't file for disability. I don't want to take. I just want to give. If I can prevent people from experiencing the hell that I experienced, or the loneliness that I've known for so long, too long, then I will do it. And this is how I'm going to do it. I'm not just going to give 10% to a church. I'm not saying there's anything against that. There's not. At all. That's not what I don't want anybody to get that from me. But that's not enough. If you don't have any more money, you give your time. You talk to people. You love them. Not to convert them, but to love them like Jesus loves you. Again, I'll do this with or without anybody. But it'll happen a lot quicker if I can get some help. I mean, I'm building a fence right now. We're trying to find water to build a well by ourselves. We got I think it's called a sand point drill or something like that. We live in a camper. Yeah, we could easily go and rent a house or something, but I'd have to give up this dream, and we'll suffer. We live off a generator. Y'all can probably hear it in the back. Costs us $40 a day to run. That's almost what we make, and so things are really tight. But I thank you for hearing my story. And if you have any questions, just ask. I'm not really the best at explaining things. And if I was to go into full detail about everything, you'd have to listen to a video that was about a couple hours long. Stay in peace. Stay in love.